My beloved child, don't skip this fictional story because someone has been carrying a painful truth for far too long, and the weight of that silence has become almost impossible to bear. Stay till the end because something important is about to unfold. In this fictional story, it all begins on an ordinary evening when someone sits alone, staring at their phone with tears quietly forming in their eyes. They open your conversation, type a few words, then erase them. They try again. And erase them once more. This has become a habit. Every time they decide to tell you the truth, fear convinces them to remain silent. But tonight feels different. Tonight, they know they can't keep hiding forever. Earlier that day, something happened that changed the way they looked at everything. It wasn't a dramatic event or a shocking discovery. It was a simple moment that reminded them how quickly life can change. Watching people around them laugh, forgive, and reconnect made them realize how much time had been lost because of fear. For the first time, they admitted to themselves that the truth they had been hiding wasn't protecting anyone. It was only causing them pain. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. They finally understood that silence can become heavier than honesty when it's carried for too long. As the evening grew quieter, memories began flooding back. They remembered the first conversation that made them smile, the encouragement you once gave them without even realizing how much it meant, and the kindness that stayed with them long after the moment had passed. They whispered your name, wondering if you had ever realized the impact you made on their life. Every memory became another reminder that pretending everything was fine had never truly healed their heart. Instead, the unspoken truth had continued growing stronger, waiting for the day they would finally have the courage to face it. With shaking hands, they unlocked their phone and opened your chat once again. This time, they didn't begin with an apology or an explanation. They simply wrote, "There's something I've been hiding because I was afraid it would change the way you see me." They paused, staring at those words for several minutes. Their heart raced as doubt returned, telling them to delete the message before it was too late. But another voice, quieter and stronger, reminded them that some truths deserve to be spoken, even when they're difficult. They continued typing. "I've carried this alone for so long that I almost convinced myself I could keep pretending forever. But today I realized that honesty may hurt for a moment, while silence can hurt for years. You deserve to know the truth, even if it changes everything between us." Tears filled their eyes as they read the message one last time. For the first time, every sentence felt real because none of it was hidden behind fear anymore. Just as they moved their thumb toward the send button, the phone vibrated unexpectedly. A new notification appeared on the screen, interrupting the moment completely. They looked at it in silence, realizing that whatever happened next would determine whether they finally shared the truth they had carried for so long, or allowed fear to steal one more chance to be honest. My beloved child, don't skip this fictional story because the notification that interrupted everything wasn't what they expected, and from that very moment, they realized there was no escaping the truth any longer. Stay till the end because every second of this story leads to a turning point they never imagined. They stare at the screen for several moments before unlocking it. Their heart is beating so hard that even taking a deep breath feels difficult. The notification isn't from you. It isn't from a friend or a family member. It's a simple memory reminder showing a photograph taken years ago. At first, they almost dismiss it, but something tells them to open it anyway. As the image fills the screen, every emotion they've spent months trying to bury suddenly comes rushing back. The smiles in that picture look so genuine, the laughter so effortless, and for the first time in a very long while, they realize just how much they miss the version of themselves that wasn't hiding behind fear. They continue staring at the photo long after the notification disappears. Every tiny detail begins reminding them of moments they thought time had erased. They remember conversations that lasted until midnight, the encouragement they received when life felt impossible, and the quiet comfort of simply knowing someone cared. In this fictional story, none of those memories had ever truly disappeared. They had simply been buried beneath responsibilities, distractions, and the belief that staying silent was somehow the right thing to do. But tonight, those memories refuse to stay buried. Instead, they begin asking difficult questions. Why did I convince myself that honesty would only make things worse? Why did I believe silence was protecting both of us? And most importantly, how much longer can I keep pretending that everything is fine? Listen carefully, because this changes everything. They slowly close the photo and return to the unfinished message still waiting in your chat. Every word feels heavier than before because now they're no longer writing from fear, they're writing from the deepest part of their heart. They begin typing again. The truth I've been hiding isn't something you did wrong. It isn't because I stopped caring. It's because I became afraid of what honesty might cost me. I kept convincing myself that if I stayed quiet, life would eventually make the decision for me. But instead, every silent day only made the weight inside my heart grow heavier. They stopped typing for a moment, wiping away tears they didn't expect to fall. They've imagined this conversation hundreds of times, but somehow the real moment feels even more emotional than they ever prepared for. Outside, the rain begins falling softly against the window. The room is silent except for the sound of the storm and the gentle vibration of the phone resting in their hands. They look around the room, noticing little reminders of dreams they once had. Books they promised themselves they would finish, letters they never sent, places they wanted to visit, and goals they quietly abandoned while trying to convince themselves they were fine. Suddenly they realize something that completely changes their perspective. The painful truth they have been hiding hasn't only affected one relationship. It has slowly changed the way they live every part of their life. Fear became a habit. Silence became a routine. And pretending everything was okay became easier than admitting they were hurting. They unlock the phone again and continue writing. Today something happened that opened my eyes. I watched someone apologize after years of silence, and instead of being rejected, they found peace. That moment made me realize I've been running from the wrong thing. I wasn't afraid of your response. I was afraid of finally admitting the truth to myself. Those words feel different. They don't sound perfect or poetic. They sound honest. For the first time, they stop worrying about saying the right thing and simply focus on saying the real thing. Every sentence becomes lighter because every sentence removes another piece of the burden they've carried for so long. Minutes pass. They read the message again from the beginning. This time they don't search for mistakes. They don't delete entire paragraphs. They don't try to make themselves sound stronger than they really are. Instead, they accept that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. Their thumb slowly moves toward the send button once again. They whisper quietly, "Whatever happens after this, at least I'll finally stop hiding." A sense of peace begins replacing the fear that had controlled them for so long. But just before they press the button, the screen lights up once more. This time, it's not another memory notification. It's a new message that simply says, "Before you send this, there's something you need to know first." They freeze, unable to move, realizing that the truth they were about to reveal may not be the only secret waiting to come into the light. The phone remains in their hands, the message still unsent, as they slowly reach toward the new notification, knowing that whatever they read next could change the direction of this fictional story forever. My beloved child, don't skip this fictional story because the notification glowing on the screen is unlike anything they have ever seen before. Stay till the end because every moment from here begins to reveal why the truth became impossible to hide. Their thumb freezes just above the send button. For several long seconds, they simply stare at the words on the screen. Before you send this, there's something you need to know first. Confusion fills their mind. They don't remember installing any application that could send a notification like this. There is no app icon, no sender's name, and no explanation. Only those words remain, quietly waiting. After taking a slow breath, they tap the notification. The screen fades to black before a single sentence slowly appears. The hardest truth isn't the one you're about to tell, it's the one you've been hiding from yourself. They immediately shake their head. "No," they whisper. "I've already accepted the truth." But deep inside, they know those words have reached a place they have been avoiding for a very long time. They lock the phone for a moment and walk toward the window. Outside, the rain has become heavier. The streets are almost empty, and the quiet night somehow mirrors everything they have been feeling inside. They realize they have spent months convincing themselves that fear was protecting their heart, when in reality it had only been building walls around it. They unlock the phone again. Another message appears. Close your eyes and remember the moment everything changed. Without realizing it, they do exactly that. Memories begin rushing back one after another. They remember the first conversation that made them smile for no reason. They remember the day they started looking forward to every message, every laugh, every simple moment that somehow became unforgettable. They remember pretending not to care whenever someone mentioned your name, even though hearing it secretly made their entire day brighter. Every memory feels vivid, almost as though it happened only yesterday. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. They finally understand that the painful truth wasn't only about hidden feelings. The painful truth was how long they had allowed fear to control their life. Every opportunity they ignored, every conversation they postponed, every honest word they refused to speak, had quietly become another chapter of regret. They whisper to themselves, "I kept waiting for certainty, but certainty never came. All I ever needed was courage." The phone vibrates again. A new message appears. Open your drafts. Confused, they follow the instruction. Inside are dozens of unfinished messages. Some are only a few words long. Others are pages filled with emotions they never had the courage to send. They begin reading them one by one. Every draft tells the same story in a different way. Sometimes they apologized. Sometimes they admitted they missed you. Sometimes they simply wanted to ask how you were doing. Yet every single draft ends the same way. Deleted. Never sent. Forgotten. Their eyes begin to fill with tears. They realize they weren't protecting themselves from heartbreak. They were protecting themselves from vulnerability, and in doing so, they had also protected themselves from happiness. Another notification interrupts their thoughts. Now read the message you're about to send. They return to your conversation. Slowly. Carefully. They read every line again. This time something feels different. The message is no longer filled with fear. It's filled with honesty. For the first time, they don't wonder whether the words are perfect. They only wonder why they waited so long to write them. They smile through tears and quietly whisper, "No matter what happens after this, I'm finally telling the truth." Their thumb slowly moves toward the send button once again. 3, 2, 1. Just before they press it, the phone begins ringing. Not a text. Not another notification. An incoming call. They stare at the screen in complete disbelief. The caller ID shows a name they never expected to see at that exact moment. For several seconds, they can't decide whether to answer the call or finally send the message they've been carrying in their heart for so long. Both choices could change everything, and both require the same thing they have been searching for since this story began: the courage to stop running from the truth. My beloved child, don't skip this fictional story because the phone continues ringing, and every second feels heavier than the last. Stay till the end because the decision made in this moment will change the direction of everything. Their eyes remain fixed on the screen as the caller's name glows in front of them. Their heart is beating so fast they can barely think. For a moment, they consider ignoring the call and sending the message instead. Another part of them wonders if answering might finally provide the courage they've been searching for all this time. After taking one deep breath, they slide their finger across the screen and answer. For the first few seconds, neither person speaks. Only silence fills the call. It isn't an awkward silence. It feels as though both hearts are waiting for the other to take the first step. Finally, a familiar voice softly says, "I don't know why, but I felt I should call you tonight." Those simple words instantly break something inside them. They close their eyes because hearing that voice brings back every memory they've spent so long trying to forget. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. Sometimes one unexpected conversation can reach places in the heart that years of silence never could. The conversation begins with ordinary questions. They ask how life has been, how work is going, and whether everything is okay. But beneath every sentence, there's something much deeper. Both of them can feel it, even if neither is ready to say it aloud. There are long pauses where neither person wants to end the conversation. Every laugh sounds familiar. Every memory feels alive again. They begin realizing that some connections never truly disappear. They simply wait for the right moment to be understood. As the conversation continues, the painful truth becomes even harder to carry. They keep looking at the unsent message still open on the screen. Every word is waiting to be shared, but fear whispers one final time, what if everything changes after this? They quietly lower their head. Then another thought enters their mind. What if nothing ever changes because I never tell the truth? That question is impossible to ignore. It follows them through every second of the conversation until they finally understand that regret has become far more frightening than honesty. Hours seem to pass in only a few minutes. Just before ending the call, the other person unexpectedly says, "Can I ask you something?" They softly answer, "Of course." A brief silence follows before the question finally comes. Have you ever wanted to tell me something, but stopped yourself? The room becomes completely silent. Their heart nearly stops. They never expected those words. For several seconds, they cannot speak. Then they quietly smile. Yes, they finally whisper. More times than you could ever imagine. Another silence follows, but this one feels different. It isn't filled with fear anymore. It's filled with understanding. The other person gently replies, "Then maybe we're both carrying the same secret." Those words echo in their heart long after they're spoken. When the call finally ends, they don't feel confused anymore. Instead, they feel something they haven't felt in a very long time. Hope. They slowly look back at the message they wrote earlier. This time, they don't delete a single word. They don't rewrite a single sentence. They simply smile, knowing the truth has already begun finding its way into the open. Just as they prepare to press send, a new message appears on the screen. Tomorrow, let's stop speaking through fear and finally speak from the heart. They stare at those words, realizing tomorrow won't just be another ordinary day. It will be the day silence finally comes to an end. My beloved child, don't skip this fictional story because the morning they had been waiting for has finally arrived. Stay till the end because today is no longer about hiding the truth, it's about finding the courage to face it. Neither of them sleeps much that night. Every time they close their eyes, they replay the phone call, the long silences, and the final message that simply said, "Tomorrow, let's stop speaking through fear and finally speak from the heart." As the first light of morning fills the room, they look at their phone once again. The unsent message is still there, exactly as they left it. This time, instead of feeling afraid, they feel strangely calm. They realize that whatever happens today, they don't want another day to pass without being honest. They get ready slowly, but their mind is somewhere else. During breakfast, they barely notice the food in front of them. While driving, every familiar street reminds them of another memory. The music playing in the background feels like the soundtrack to everything they've been carrying inside for so long. In this fictional story, they finally understand that the painful truth wasn't destroying them because it was terrible, it was destroying them because it had been locked away for too long. Some emotions don't disappear when they're ignored. They simply grow louder in silence until they're impossible to escape. When they arrive at the meeting place, they stop for a moment before getting out of the car. Their hands are trembling. Their heart is racing. They wonder whether this conversation will become the beginning of something beautiful or simply bring the peace that comes from finally telling the truth. They look at the phone one last time and quietly whisper, "No more hiding." Then they step forward. Across the distance, they see the other person waiting. Neither of them waves immediately. Instead, they simply smile, a quiet smile filled with relief, uncertainty, and hope all at once. As they walk closer, it feels as though the world around them becomes quieter. The noise of passing cars fades. The voices of strangers disappear. All that remains is the moment they've both been preparing for without even realizing it. They sit together for several minutes before anyone speaks. Surprisingly, the silence no longer feels uncomfortable. It feels peaceful. Finally, one of them breaks it by saying, "I almost didn't come today." The other smiles gently and replies, "I almost let fear stop me too." They both laugh softly, realizing how close they came to allowing fear to write the ending of their story. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones who never feel afraid, they're the ones who choose to move forward despite that fear. The conversation slowly becomes deeper. They speak about the moments they never forgot, the conversations that stayed with them, and the reasons they remained silent for so long. There are no accusations. No anger. No blame. Only honesty. They admit that they both spent far too much time assuming what the other person might think instead of simply asking. Every truth they share seems to remove another layer of the burden they had carried for months. The painful secret that once felt impossible to speak now feels lighter with every sentence. Then, after a long pause, one of them quietly says, "The truth I've been hiding wasn't that I wanted to hurt you, it was that I was terrified of losing the place I already had in your life. I thought silence would keep us safe, but all it did was keep us apart." The other person's eyes begin to fill with tears. They don't interrupt. They don't judge. They simply listen. When the words finally come, they're gentle. "Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me." Those 6 words mean more than either of them expected. For the first time since this fictional story began, the painful truth no longer feels like a burden. It feels like freedom. They realize that honesty didn't destroy the connection they shared. It strengthened it. Fear had spent months convincing them that speaking from the heart would end everything. Instead, it became the first real step toward understanding one another. As they prepare to leave, the phone resting quietly on the table vibrates one final time. They both glance at the screen. A single notification appears. The hardest conversation is over. The next chapter is yours to write. Neither of them reaches for the phone immediately. Instead, they look at each other, smile, and realize that for the first time in a very long while, they no longer need a message to tell them what to do next. My beloved child, don't skip this fictional story because this is the final chapter, the moment where every unanswered question finally finds peace. Stay till the end because the ending isn't about a secret anymore, it's about the freedom that comes after the truth is finally spoken. As they leave the meeting, neither of them says much at first. They simply walk side by side, smiling quietly, realizing that the weight they had carried for so long has finally disappeared. The painful truth that once felt impossible to share had never been the real enemy. Fear was. And now, fear no longer had control over either of them. Over the following weeks, their conversations become natural and effortless. There are no more unsent messages, no more late-night doubts, and no more pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. Instead of guessing what the other person is thinking, they begin asking honest questions. Instead of hiding behind silence, they choose openness. They laugh about the misunderstandings that once seemed so overwhelming and realize how many sleepless nights could have been avoided if they had simply trusted each other sooner. In this fictional story, they discover that honesty doesn't weaken a relationship, it gives it room to grow. One afternoon, they return to the same place where they first chose courage over fear. This time, everything feels different. The air feels lighter. The conversation flows without hesitation. Looking around, they realize the place itself hasn't changed, but they have. The fear that once filled every silence has been replaced with trust. The uncertainty that once followed every conversation has been replaced with understanding. For the first time, neither of them feels the need to hide their thoughts, because they've learned that real connection begins where pretending ends. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. They come to understand that the painful truth was never meant to push them apart. It was meant to teach them that meaningful relationships are built on honesty, patience, respect, and the courage to speak even when your voice shakes. They stop chasing perfect words and start valuing genuine conversations. They stop worrying about saying the wrong thing and begin appreciating the simple fact that they're finally speaking from the heart. As the sun begins to set, one of them quietly says, "I spent so much time believing the truth would make me lose you." The other smiles warmly and replies, "The truth didn't make us lose each other. It gave us the chance to finally understand each other." Those words stay with them long after the conversation ends. They both realize that the greatest turning point wasn't receiving an urgent message or uncovering a hidden secret. It was choosing honesty instead of letting fear write the ending. Before they leave, they both silence their phones and slip them into their pockets. There are no more mysterious notifications, no more urgent messages, and no more hidden confessions waiting to be discovered. They don't need them anymore. The conversation they had been avoiding for so long has finally happened, and with it came something far more valuable than certainty: peace. My beloved child, this fictional story reminds us that the strongest relationships aren't built on guessing what someone feels or waiting for signs to appear. They're built when two people decide that truth is more important than fear, respect is stronger than pride, and honest communication matters more than perfect timing. Sometimes the happiest ending isn't discovering a secret. It's realizing that once the truth is spoken with kindness, both hearts are finally free to move forward. They take one last look at each other, smile with genuine gratitude, and walk toward the future together, no longer carrying the weight of silence, but the comfort of trust. And from that day on, they promised themselves that no matter what challenges life brought, they would never allow fear to speak louder than honesty again.